Welcome to the INFOWARS Nightly News. It's Tuesday, December 9th, 2014, and I'm Leanne McAdoo. Here are tonight's top stories.
Tonight.
When I said that, I was being glib and, quite frankly, trying to make myself seem smart.
Gruber tortures the data again, while Feinstein pretends to release the data on torture. And the politically connected get $900 billion in tax breaks. All that and more on tonight's INFOWARS Nightly News.
Night before last, I was at the Kennedy Center Honors, where they honored Tom Hanks, famously Forrest Gump, the ultimate in successful stupid man. Are you stupid?
I don't think so, no.
Does MIT employ stupid people?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, so you're a smart man who said some, as the ranking member said, some really stupid things, and you said the same. Is that correct?
The comments I made were really inexcusable.
And it was those really stupid things that were said repeatedly by the top economic advisor to Obamacare that landed him in the hot seat today with the House Oversight Committee. Now, Gruber repeatedly apologized for his mean, glib, and arrogant statements that were made about the stupidity of the American voter. He said it was inexcusable that I tried to appear smarter by insulting others. And apparently he thinks that we are stupid enough that we are going to buy his apology, which is so tired. Now, this 4-hour hearing also touched on another videotape statement that's been quoted in a lawsuit. It threatens a central pillar of Obamacare, and in that tape, Gruber seems to endorse the argument that Obamacare subsidies, which are designed to help bring down the cost of insurance, make it more affordable. Well, he seems to say that they're illegal for people who use the federal marketplace, healthcare.gov. And of course, 37 states use healthcare.gov. Now, today's hearing was the GOP's latest and last best shot at Obamacare this Congress. So let's just take a little look at Gruber's greatest.
Lack of transparency is a huge political advantage. And basically, call it the stupidity of the American voter or whatever. But basically, that was really, really critical to getting the thing to pass.
Are you stupid?
I don't think so, no.
Does MIT employ stupid people?
Not to my knowledge.
This has been a 5-year ordeal with this law. We want to know how much you got from the taxpayer and then made fun of him after you got the money and lied to him.
I don't recall the total.
Who owns those documents? Who paid for them?
I'm not sure.
You don't know who paid for those documents? Were you paid by the American taxpayer?
Are you stupid?
I'm not sure. Once again, the committee can take it up with my counsel. Once again, the committee can take that up with my counsel. Once again, the committee can take that up with
I need a yes or no. I'm not interested in talking to your counsel.
You can take that up with my counsel.
As far as I can tell, we are here today to beat up on Jonathan Gruber for stupid, I mean absolutely stupid, comments he made over the past few years.
You can take that up with my counsel.
Are you stupid?
I'm not sure.
And coming up later in the show, Rob Dew will be bringing you some information about how to opt out of Obamacare. Now, a long-delayed Senate report was released today. This was by the Senate Intelligence Committee, and it basically details the enhanced interrogation tactics that were put in place by the CIA. And it reveals that not only did the CIA routinely lie about the information that it received from detaining and interrogating terror suspects, but it also reveals some of the grisliest techniques that were used, methods that were far more brutal than previously acknowledged by the CIA. Now, as Feinstein released her redacted report on CIA torture, those on the left who said they initially wanted Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld and their minions to be held accountable have now thrown in the towel for that request, and you won't believe why.
As Gruber goes before Congress to be drilled for torturing the data about Obamacare in order to deceive the American people, a heavily edited and censored report about actual torture was released by the Senate. Republican and Democrat reactions have been as predictable as they are hypocritical. But the most surprising reaction has come from some libertarians who have in the past opposed torture. More on that in a moment, but first, the politicians. Senator Feinstein is sanctimoniously promoting the release as a confrontation of the ugly truth.
History will judge us by our commitment to a just society governed by law and the willingness to face an ugly truth and say never again.
Without any sense of irony or guilt, Feinstein says that on the very same day that the NDAA heads to the Senate floor for the fourth time under her leadership. It destroys our commitment to a just society governed by the rule of law when it presumes to authorize illegal, unconstitutional actions like indefinite detention of U.S. citizens by the military without any charges, as well as rendition and presumably enhanced interrogation, federal government's euphemism for torture. She won't face that ugly truth. She won't say never again, but rather let's do it again. And of course, after the 1,600-page NDAA was released at 10:30 at night, the GOP House passed it just a day and a half later, mocking their pledge of 2010 to always read the bill. And they're going to do the same thing with the omnibus continuing resolution spending bill, keeping it secret until just a few hours before the vote. And will the Republican who's likely to take Feinstein's place on the Senate Intelligence Committee be any better than Feinstein? Absolutely not. Richard Burr will be much worse, having already gone on record saying there shouldn't be any public hearing about what the CIA or the NSA does about anything. But the most amazing reaction that shows how low America has already sunk into accepting a lawless government comes from the executive director of the ACLU, who previously lobbied Bush to oppose presidential pardons for those who had planned and authorized torture. The ACLU director points out that neither Obama nor the Justice Department has shown any appetite for holding anyone accountable. When the department did conduct an investigation, it appeared not to have interviewed any of the prisoners who were tortured. And it repeatedly abused the state secrets privilege in order to derail cases brought by prisoners, including Americans who were tortured as enemy combatants. But now the ACLU is calling for formal pardons for these people. Their tortured logic, worthy of John Gruber, is that doing nothing, as Obama has and will do, is a tacit pardon. We need to have, they say, an explicit pardon, so we can, as a society, at least acknowledge that laws were broken. That's it. No longer any hope of criminal prosecution for leaders and government employees who violate the law, commit treason, and torture people, including American citizens. No, the best we can hope for is to say it was wrong. But don't think that you're going to even get that in this kind of lawless society. Our government no longer has the will to punish cops who murder or politicians who torture and murder. That's the real ugly truth we have to confront. For INFOWARS Nightly News, I'm David Knight.
And another report was released today, this time by Senator Tom Coburn, and it's a report detailing more than $900 billion in loopholes in the federal tax system. It is a report titled Tax Decoder, and Coburn estimates $500 billion, which is more than enough to balance the federal budget, is lost annually because the U.S. tax code is so complicated and unwieldy. And according to Coburn, taxes should not be determined by who has access to the craftiest accountants, lobbyists, and politicians. Now, his report details the complexity of the ever-changing 9,000-page tax code. He reports people who pay no taxes at all, which of course means that the rest of us have to pick up the slack and pay higher taxes. So this is Hollywood filmmakers, people, they write off their gambling losses at casinos. Of course, we've talked about sports team owners. They write off the depreciating value of their players. And of course, we've got tax-free nonprofit charities benefiting from these loopholes. For instance, Lady Gaga's nonprofit, the Born This Way Foundation, raised $2.6 million, but donated only $5,000 of that in 2012. So here we have people like you and me scraping by so we can donate whatever we can to charities, or, asking us to dump buckets of ice water on our head to these charities. Meanwhile, they are putting the money and the dollars into the wrong pockets. let's just take a look at some of these. We've got Kanye West Foundation spent $553,000 plus in 2009 on salaries, travel, and other administrative expenses. Only $573 actually went to charity, and that's to help kids from dropping out of school. And then Wyclef Jean's charity paid him $100,000 to perform at his own event. We already know the NFL and PGA Tour, among others, are granted tax-exempt status, even though they bring in millions of dollars every year. The Kids Wish Network, their mission is to provide wishes for terminally ill children. But of the $18.6 million they raised in 2012, less than $240,000 of that was spent directly on granting wishes. The Cancer Fund of America donated less than $1 million to cancer patients, but gave $80 million spent on fundraisers over a 10-year period and gave $5 million of that to the founder's family. So, of course, we already know about corporations receiving astronomical tax breaks. Some of them, like Facebook, for instance, reported a $1.1 billion in profit for 2013, but paid zero in federal and state income taxes. And in fact, they even received a refund. Now, this is in addition to the trillions of dollars that corporations keep overseas. Fortune 500 companies, 111 of them paid absolutely zero taxes. So these are the loopholes that we're talking about when everyone's screaming for, oh, give us a carbon tax. We demand a carbon tax. All these corporations should pay it. The worst abusers should pay for all of this global warming. Newsflash, they're not going to pay that carbon tax. You and I are. We're going to be paying for that, and they will figure out a very creative way to make us all feel guilty for breathing. Now, I just want to point out that Obama took some time out of his busy presidential schedule on Monday. He was meeting with the royal family. He went over to the Colbert Report and did a little, reading of the news there. But then he also went over to talk to his folks at BET. Now, the president said the protests over Eric Garner and Mike Brown are necessary to trigger America's conscience so long as they are peaceful. The president said, sometimes a country's conscience has to be triggered by some inconvenience. So here he is on BET, totally disregarding the widespread rioting and looting that has taken place in some of these cities, saying that the country needs to be inconvenienced. So this is kind of like the inconvenience that he caused last year by shutting down the nation's monuments, which, of course, we saw that last year where all the vets brought the barricades there to the White House and dumped them there. That was a political decision, to inconvenience the country. So very political there. But I'm sorry, the protests completely jumped the shark for me when they decided that white people weren't allowed to put their hands up and in solidarity with the protest there. That was when it was over for me. Hashtag only Black Lives Matter. I'm done. Now, speaking of recording police in public, which is one of the main reasons why we are seeing these protests going on all over the country because of the horrendous activity by the police that's been caught on camera. Well, earlier this year, the Illinois Supreme Court overturned a draconian eavesdropping law, which would make it a felony to record public officials without their permission. Well, today, that bill is back with a vengeance. A lot of things happening today. Now, this amendment removed all of the bill's previous content, replacing it with the new ban on recording, and they passed it both House and Senate with an overwhelming majority, while citizens were busy debating on a minimum wage hike, of course, that did not pass. So they're distracting everyone with their minimum wage hike while they're passing this law that discourages people from recording conversations with police by making it unlawful to record a conversation with police or an attorney general, assistant attorney general, state's attorney, a judge. They'll make it a class 3 felony. So basically, you'll be punished with more of a crime if you record a police officer or another public official than you would for recording a private individual, a private citizen, which is a class 4 felony. So you're still going to get a little prison time there, but even more so if you record the police. Obviously, what is this going to do? It's going to make people incredibly fearful of recording their interactions with police officers, which, as